Cine Men, episode
Man.
88. It's me, your boy C, host most of the things right now on Pop Rican. One half of the tasty twosome that is the Cine Men across.
Nom, 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 nom.
On the other side of the screen, we have, as always, the diabolical Douglas Davidson. How are you doing today, good sir?
I wish I could pull that off like Carl Urban. Diabolical.
Fucking diabolical.
Just can't do it. Not cool
No,
enough.
no, we're not cool enough. We're also not what Australian enough to be
But it
able
was
to
from
pull
New
that off.
Zealand.
Is he one of those? One of those.
I think he's from New Zealand, but it's possible I only think that because early in his career he did an episode of Xena, and I think they used a lot of locals. But I may be wrong. I suddenly feel
Uh,
like we should go to the internets and, having started the episode, not even a minute in, deviate entirely to go find out about Carl Urban.
yes, I wasn't Bruce Campbell on Xena. I do not
Yeah,
believe.
absolutely. He was the thief. I
All
suddenly can't
right.
remember his name, but he would like yodel and then fucking disappear.
You were right. Carl Urban is New Zealand.
There we go. There we go. So he's
So
what is it? Kiwi?
it's a Kiwi.
Kiwi.
Yes. There you
So
go.
yeah. Let's
Mysteries
see.
unveiled.
Carl Urban, of course, Bruce. It was a Raimi production. Sam Raimi did direct and I think produced
That's
that
right.
show quite a bit.
I forgot
And
about
that's
that.
why there was Joxer the Mighty, Ted Raimi, because where there's Sam, there
Yep.
will be
There
Ted.
will be Ted. Yeah,
Joxer
man.
the Mighty.
I fucked with Xena back in the days, man. Like I guess it was like that, and Xena and Hercules were two of the original television cinematic universes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, we always my household leaned more Xena than we did Hercules.
I liked Hercules because I was big into the Greek myths, and Xena, as far as I knew, Greek and Roman myths, as far as I knew, Xena was more of a creation rather than inspired by something.
Right,
At this
right.
point, I haven't looked into it. Big crush on Gabriella when I was younger.
Fair,
But
fair, fair,
I
fair.
loved I loved I think it was like TBS or TNT, maybe it was WGN, like based out of Chicago or some shit. But they would, like, every Sunday they'd either have a
Marathons.
Hercules, they'd have a Xena, or they'd have like it was like a modern day Smokey and the Bandit, if I remember right. Those weren't bad either.
Okay. I
But yeah,
didn't
all
know
the
that
early
was a
stuff were
thing.
these big TV movies, which eventually became the TV show Hercules, and which created the spinoff for Xena.
Man, Xena, high in the running for one of the better spin-off TV shows. That's
Yes.
underrated.
Yep, yep, yep.
That
Yep,
and
yep, yep.
the Jeffersons. All right, what? It's been.
So are you trying to say that Xena moved on up? Is that what you're trying to suggest?
She finally got the inner of the pie, that thing she threw around all the time. She just threw pies at people.
Right.
What a weird start to this episode.
I know, but that's why people come. They don't really come for the conversation about the movies. It's really just to see what nonsense we bring to the start of the episode.
They just come for tangents, and you can see episode listenership just dip off after 5 minutes of every episode.
But it's a great 5 minutes. They're
Great
in
five
it for
minutes.
that 5 minutes.
It's a tight five. It's been about 2 weeks. We're fudging the dots a little bit here. It's been about a week and some change since you last heard us here at Cinnamon. We had to sneak in an episode right before our esteemed leader, Mr. Davidson, takes himself a much well needed slash earned vacation, cation, cation, cation,
Yeah,
cation.
I'm still working. I just won't be writing, with the exception of maybe Guardians Volume 3, because it's dropping on digital on the 7th of July. But basically, I write my review of Shanghai Joe, a restoration of a, I don't know if the appropriate term is spaghetti martial arts movie, but I think that's what I'm dealing with. It's an Italian made martial arts film. I need to look into it, but it's been on my desk for a while. It came out a while back and I couldn't get to it. But I'll be doing that, and then Saturday afternoon my vacation begins, and I'm gonna catch up on movies that I bought last year during the Criterion sale.
Just
I'm
in
gonna do
time
it.
for this year's Criterion
I know it's
sale.
perfect. Gonna do that. I'm gonna play some video games. I'm still gonna be doing EOM stuff. I just won't be writing, and I'm kind of looking forward to it. I haven't had a no write vacation since April of 2020.
There you go.
Excuse me, 2022.
Yeah,
I need some time off.
you need some time off. So we're getting this podcast out for that, as is our standard for the last couple of years. We are
Mm-hmm.
halfway at the time of this recording, just shy of halfway through the year that
Mm-hmm.
is 2023. So it's time for us to unveil our top five movies of the year. But before we get to that, what have you seen recently there, Mr. Davidson?
Haven't watched too much since the last recording, but what I have seen and haven't discussed, one of which is now in my top five, so I'm going to save that one for the actual list. But what I would like to do is very quickly make mention of some home releases and one that is probably by the time this drops available on Hulu. So very quickly, just a quick heads up that if you've not seen the Stephen Williams directed, Kelvin Harrison Jr. led Chevalier, I believe that's now streaming on Hulu. It is available on digital. The digital to own version comes with a 15-minute behind the scenes, which is fascinating, particularly finding out that Kelvin Harrison Jr. learned to play the violin so that he could take on this role. The movie is very good. The music is a compilation, if you will, of what was found of Joseph Bologna's remaining music that Napoleon tried to wipe off the face of the earth,
Mm-hmm.
and some compositions from composer Chris Bowers. He tried to sort of build around the known music and to fill out the rest of it. But the costumes are great. The editing is phenomenal. Cinematography is good. The production design for me was a little problematic. Apparently, they shot in Prague, and when I found that out in the bonus features, I went, "That's why stuff looked funny." Because they're trying to make it look like pre-French Revolution France, and it's like
Yeah,
not
not
quite.
quite.
So there's some the interior shots when they're on in sets, no problem, everything looks great. But when they do anything that's outside, that's not like very clearly outside, it starts to look very much like a production and brings things down. And there's sort of a look to the cinematography. One aspect that bothered me is it reminded me of like a BBC program, which it shouldn't. It's certainly a choice, but it's a film shot for theaters, not for home. So why did it have that sort of let's have motion smoothing on? It really brought the whole thing down. But did want to mention Chevalier. Avatar, the 2009 James Cameron film, is now available on 4K. So if you are a fan of that and didn't want to just watch it through your Disney Plus, you can now own it. It comes with two new featurettes that are around 30 minutes in length. If you love this film, chances are you've already pre-ordered it if 4K is your thing. And if you're not, one thing I would make you aware of, and this was sort of an interesting thing, one, the Disney Plus version of Avatar looked better than this. Um, in the sense of the depth of field felt more natural, but the digital version that I watched the 4K of Avatar on, the depth of field was shifted to the point where you could really tell when a real person was engaging with another real person who was very much clearly on a green screen or blue screen set. So when you're watching Stephen Lang's Colonel get into the amp suit and walk off, you're like, he's floating in the air.
Yep, I know exactly what you mean.
And that's one of the tricks with 4K is that there are some things, particularly when they're digital heavy, where it can create it can screw with the depth of field. So stuff that maybe in the theater when it was released originally, you'll go, ooh, that's amazing. But when you get it on 4K and they remaster it for home video, you can sometimes run into these issues, particularly because with 4K, you it theoretically won't be compressed because it's on a disc, but a movie that's the length of Avatar will run into most likely an issue that, say, Avengers Endgame did, where the movie's so long and has so many digital parts that it has to be compressed just to fit on the disc, which is another issue that I had with the digital version of the 4K that I didn't have with Disney Plus. I kept running into compression issues while streaming. So the movie started looking worse and worse, which is another reason why I push for physical media. Because even if it's actually not the best 4K, whatever version it can be, you're still not going to run into the decompression issues. So physical media, if you're going to get it,
Please refer to our last episode.
yeah, I can't recommend the digital edition. Okay, two to go. Also coming to home video, also 4K, Peter Weir's Dramedy, The Truman Show from 1998 is getting a 25th anniversary, first time 4K release. The film is still just as poignant and thoughtful in 98 as it is now, or is now as it was in 98. As a parent, I found some new aspects that really sort of messed with me. That it begins with the whole reality television thing of it all, but then it goes into what Ed Harris's perspective of Truman is and how that really comes to light. But if you already have the Truman Show, the 4K and Dolby Atmos, I really don't see that doing a whole lot for folks. If you've got the Blu-ray, you're going to be totally fine, particularly because the cinematography here really doesn't benefit from 4K in any way, shape, or form, particularly because the stuff that's in the South Haven television set that Truman's living in, it's meant to look that in a very specific television-y, sitcom-y way. So it doesn't benefit from any of that. But if you don't own it and you love the Truman Show, you're going to be happy with the 4K if you pick that up. It does come with Blu-ray and a digital code, so joy in that. Last but not least, available on Hulu streaming on the 28th of June is a documentary by Peter Nix, who has another film about Stephen Curry coming out pretty soon after it premiered at Sundance. This film, Anthem, premiered at Tribeca Film Festival, and it features Chris Bowers, the composer from Chevalier, and DJ Dahi, who are looking at the national anthem, looking at its history, and then trying to determine if a new national anthem could be made and what it would sound like. And the premise and the execution of the doc is the two musicians go to 5 different cities on a road trip across the country, talking to musicians in different areas and try to bring them in to compose a new national anthem. It is fascinating in the way that it looks at the national anthem, the way that it explores its history, its creation, the way that it got turned into a national anthem and the things associated with that. But I feel like it doesn't have enough teeth for the stuff that it's trying to do. It's trying to be a little too optimistic, which is fine. Be optimistic. How can we bring everybody together? But it does it in a way that I don't think really interrogates the material as much as it could. But if you are into music, it's 98 minutes. Most 8 minutes or so of it are credits. But if you like Chris Bowers' musical compositions and you like DJ Dahi, check it out.
Boom, boom. There you have it. There you have it. Check all that business out. I've watched some stuff as well. A good bit of it I will keep to myself as I'm in the finalish
Raid
stages.
2. You watched the Raid 2. The
I
movie
did.
ruled.
I rewatched the Raid 2. Would have been quite some time. Trying to in the final stages of locking down the 100 action movie list, which will start at the beginning of the year. I'm trying to get that done early so I can go ahead and just relax in the back half of the year. But aside from the Mission Impossible rewatch, I got about 12 more movies left, and then I will have a skeleton of my action movie list that I'll just fiddle with the rest of the year. But so that stuff I won't mention because it will more than all likely be on there. Save the suspense. I am in the desperate madcap dash to watch the Criterions I own and have not watched before the sale comes out and starts. A couple I am not 100% certain. Some I've seen, and I think I just chose not to talk about here on the show. I watched And Life Goes On, which I don't think I've talked about yet. The sequel to Where is the Friend's House, which I have talked about on this show.
Recently.
Three episodes ago. The part of the Coker trilogy, a trilogy of films made by Abbas Kuratsami, based on a small region in India. If you remember that, Where is the Friend's House is just a small, low stakes movie about a kid trying to get another kid in his class as homework to him because he accidentally took it, and this kid is going to be expelled if he does not bring his homework with him the next day. And it's all about, I have to get this kid's homework back to him. This is my fault. Very low stakes, very cute, very warm. In a meta layer, and right after that movie was made, a big earthquake hit that part of town where they filmed. So then the filmmaker went back and shot a film about a guy wanting to go to the place where is the Friend's home filmed.
Very
if that
meta.
makes sense. Yes, yes, very meta. Um, Not as good as the first movie. It's a man who is I do believe he's supposed to be like a documentarian, and his son um are going to visit this area because his son was a big fan of the first movie and he wants to meet the kids that were in there. And you do stumble across like two or three of the kids from the first movie pop up and make an appearance in there as well. But just kind of like a father and son road trip throughout this devastated area. I'm not sure what caused him to want to make a movie about this, but it's just kind of them moving through the area and them
Okay.
just kind of vibing out. The third movie, from what I can tell, is a documentary about the making of the movie, the second movie that I just watched. So
Okay.
it will go one level deeper whenever I want to talk about that. Not as good as the first one.
And then when you finish the third one, you'll fall into a tub, or will you wake up on a plane?
I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I'll just be in the van as the van hits the water. um, yeah, it's good, but not as good as for the first one. Really blew me away. The second one kind of underwhelmed in that category, but still worth the watch. And the good thing about all three of these movies is they're all like 80 and 90 something minutes each, so they're quick watches. They might be on the Criterion channel as well right now. I don't think I talked about In a Lonely Place, noirish type suspense joint. Friend of the show, Joel Winstead, did a review for it from November. Can't remember if it did not. Humphrey Bogart, uh, Gloria
No,
Graham,
no. From here on out, it's Bogart.
Humphrey Bogart, Gloria
Like if you're
Graham,
trying to leave the house in a hurry and you're hungry, you just grab a Bogart,
Bogart.
just grab from the refrigerator, squeeze it right into your mouth.
Two spoonfuls of Bogart is all you need there. It's just about an aspiring actress who is gets into this relationship with Humphrey Bogart in this movie, who is a screenwriter who is a little bit down on his luck. And the further she gets into this relationship, the more temperamental you find out that the Humphrey Bogart character is. And he has also been accused of murder. And while we know he didn't do the murder because we see everything from his perspective, so he wasn't even around, it's just his personality, his tendency to fray and raw nerves sometimes on purpose, and his overall acerbiqueness. He just keeps shooting himself in the foot. It just keeps making himself look like the prime suspect, even though we know he's not a murderer. And he's just a very self-destructive character, is the best way of putting it. It is a pretty darn good movie. As far as the criterions I've seen, if you have me on the letterbox, you know I keep a running list of ranking all the criterion movies I've seen. This is, I don't rank it as high as Winstead did. He is really all about this movie. I thought it was good, solid, but not as good as he did. Obviously, he loves it because this is what he chose to do for November. His review is what led me to go ahead and blind buy it. And I do like it. Do like it.
Is is it by chance part of the? Is it a Best Picture winner? Because Joel has the podcast, and the winner was
No, it's not a Best Picture
plug
winner.
for Joel
Plug,
Winstead.
plug, 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 plug. No, it is not a Best Picture winner. 1950 joint there. And the third movie, yet again, another one that I'm not quite sure if I saw or I talked about already or not. Shallow Grave, the first Danny Boyle, early Danny Boyle movie. Danny Boyle who went on to do, I think he is 30 Days of Night, if I recall. He also did the supremely underrated Sunshine. Uh, so get some more Danny Boyle in your life, people. It's Ewan McGregor's first leading role, as well as one of them goofy ass doctors, Christopher Eccleston, as well. It's about these three flatmates. They take on a new tenant. New tenant overdoses his first night there of heroin, I do believe it was, and he leaves behind a giant suitcase full of cash. And that is your conceit of the movie is how this cash comes between the three flatmates, what the disagreements of what they want to do with it, how they want to handle it. The cash belongs to some not so savory people, so they are also on the hunt, looking for it as well as the police trying to figure out what happened to this individual who has disappeared off the face of the map. So yeah, it's a good three with Carrie Fox being the third of that trio, and just a good look at the three-way relationship and how the money just pretty much tears everything asunder in this movie. I dug Shallow Grave. I haven't seen a whole lot of Danny Boyle's work, I still have not checked out. Not 30 Days a Night. I'm sorry, 28 Days Later. I
No.
knew there was a number and day somewhere in the title. I seem to be amongst the minority who really enjoyed Yesterday. That came out, and I think it was 2019. A lot of
Mhm.
people kind of gave that movie some flack. I've never quite understood why, but
It's good.
it's good, man. I enjoyed it. I thought it was dope. What little I have seen of him, I've really enjoyed.
Have you seen Trance?
I've not seen Trance. I was just looking
Ugh,
at that here on the box, and I was like, oh,
challenge.
there is all right. Oh, he did Slumdog. Okay, yeah, put that in the challenge script there.
Because that's Trance is an incredibly well acted film with James McAvoy, Vincent Cassell, Rosario Dawson, and a whole bunch of others. I forgot Tom Vince Middleton was in this.
Oh yeah,
But for those of you that haven't seen it, it's 2013, and the description that's on Letterboxd: a violent gang enlists the help of a hypnotherapist in an attempt to locate a painting which somehow vanished in the middle of a heist. This is a twisty film. This is a
heck yeah.
twisty film, and McAvoy and Dawson in particular are really really good in this. So if you haven't checked it out, do recommend it. I haven't seen a lot of Boyle's films either, mostly because with 28 Days Later, 127 Hours, those types of films, whether it's later or weeks, horror films I tend not to do. But I actually saw Shallow Grave many, many years ago. I've seen a Life Less Ordinary yesterday, seen Train Spotting. But there's a couple of here I actually wouldn't mind catching up with. I still haven't seen T2. I wanted to, and I just never got around to it.
Oh yeah, I forgot that was like 2019, 2018, oh 2017.
17.
My, how time flies.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go, man. Cine Men, possibly digging deeper into the works of Danny Boyle.
You just never know.
You just never know these days, man. Time is a fleeting thing. So yeah,
Keeps
those are
on
the.
slipping,
I
slipping
do believe
into the future.
the good prophet Seal once told us the time keeps on slipping into the future.
I heard he learned that from somebody else, but I can't remember.
Yeah, I couldn't
And I
remember
like
who it
Seal's version
originally.
anyway.
The same. I can never remember who was originally, and I like Seal's version more anyways. Fly like an eagle. There. All right, and that's it for the stuff we've watched, man. It's time to get
Mm-hmm.
to the meat and potatoes of this here episode. Let's boil it, Doug. Let's mash it. Let's stick it in a stew and talk about what we are here for today.
I'm sorry, are we about to have fourth breakfast? Like, what's going on with these potatoes?
For my friend's 30th birthday, we were planning. We found on a Verbo basically what is designed to be a hobbit hole in Pennsylvania. It houses 10, I think, and it's got the giant round door on the outside, lush and green, and then everything on the inside is very hobbit like. And there's like
Very
a whole
small. Nobody
outside
can sit in anything.
whole outside like garden that's there. Everything's green and lush in the area.
Oh,
So we just put down all our rental monies and all that. So we've been all very Lord of the Rings-ish in our group chat lately. There's plans for all just getting together and watching the extended versions on day one, and that's all we're doing on day one. So we are all very hyped for Lord of the Rings stuff. So
and clearly going to get as high as Saruman.
uh, they are. I will stick with my usual booze. That belongs to professionals, which I am not of that category. We are talking today about our top five, like I said up top of the show,
Mhm.
of the year thus far. And thus far, the year has given us, as every year gives us some good movies. It's given us a
Mhm.
couple of things that I will prefer not to watch again. And then a couple of things that are just right there in the middle, like, yeah, that was pretty solid. Every year people complain about there's nothing, there's no good movies out, and every year has proven these people as wrong can be. For my half, it's the bigger movies that have really impressed me. A lot of the smaller
Mhm.
movies I've been like, okay, yeah, that was cool. I have two of those smaller movies that are just outside at that 6 and 7. But my top five is a fairly standard and one little weekly thrown curveball in there.
I am fairly certain that out of my five, there is only one that our listening audience will be familiar with, and that is only because that all four of them, four out of my five, were from film festivals none of which have gotten wide release. They're either still on the festival circuit or awaiting a release date. But my new number two, it comes available on June 30th, and everybody gets to watch it. And I can't wait for you guys to watch it.
All of my five have been released in the year 2023
Why does this
thus
sound like a
far.
Silverchair song? Anthem for the year 2000.
You want to kick it off with your five there, sir?
Sure. Well, first of all, just because I was curious about this, as of this recording, I have watched 169 movies.
Mm-hmm.
Of those 169, 127 of them are new to me watches.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So from that, I currently have a list that has around, let's see, where are we at? 32 films out of 127 that I'm like, these are fucking amazing. So I'm going to kick things off by a film that I watched. This was the Santa Barbara International Film Festival, and it's a short film called Lamb by Sinead O'Loughlin.
Mm-hmm.
This film is 15 minutes. And what it does in those 15 minutes, you don't want an extra minute. You don't want it longer. You don't want this pulled out any further than it needs to be, because it is arresting all by itself in that 15 minutes. It is the kind of story where you're like, you can't imagine a single thing of it changing. The premise of it is that it's a day like any other, and a woman is making breakfast for her infant, not quite toddler. So not a newborn, able to move around a little bit. And she's making breakfast, and all of a sudden this dude appears. And he's sitting down at the table with the child and being very close to the child. So the mom is trying to figure out how to engage this guy to get him away from her, the child. So how do you get to safety? And so all of this, all of the dialogue, everything that's happening, it's mostly set in one place, their kitchen. All of it is about this character interaction. It is so fucking riveting. And that is why I ended up giving it a 4.5 out of 5. Did write up a review of it if anyone would like to learn in a spoiler free context about it. But that is my number 5, the short film Lamb. And no connection to the A24 Lamb movie.
That's where it loses that half star. All right, my number five, man. It's a good old Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, the denouement of one of the more popular franchises in the MCU, and what a send off this movie is. You could have given me 10,000 guesses of where you think Peter Quill will wind up at the very end of this movie, and I would be wrong 10,000 times out of 10,000. It ends in a way that's like, oh, you really did find a way to really bring this full circle back to the first movie. And that's what I think I find most endearing. We get the final full circle of Nebula has finally come into her own as a character, as part of a family, as part of the Guardians, something she never had, which has been, to me, one of the best in this serialized group of movies, one of the best character progressions.
Yes.
Starts and ends here. Even the new Guardians get their time to shine. Cosmo gets her time to shine. Cracklin gets his time
She's
to
a good
shine.
girl. She's a
She's a
good girl.
good girl. That's all she wanted. The whole movie was to be told she was a good girl, and she should have embarrassed poor Cracklin like that. And yeah, there's some characters that get short shrifted here. Everybody knows that Adam Warlock kind of comes and goes, and then comes and goes. He gets like 2.5 cups of coffee in this movie.
But he didn't really need him. He didn't need the coffee. He just had to be an
it,
irritant.
it just had to be an irritant and a nuisance and an irritant. He kind of kicks off this entire trail of events, and then he kind of has his own transition and journey throughout. He has the quickest growing up to do, you could say, in this movie. Still just a fun romp. And I enjoyed it. I've seen this movie 3 times in theaters, and I enjoyed every time I've watched it. You get your big, epic, space opera ish type of action and interplay, intercut with just great moments of character beats. And I think that's the one thing that Gunn has done better than most in the MCU is the handling of action and character and plot development as well.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Absolutely agreed. Would it be fair to? I want to ask a question, but can we talk spoilers? It's been out for a while, but
Yeah. Yeah, I would
okay.
say so.
One of the things that got pointed out after I saw it, after I'd written my review, whatever else, someone brought up that in Quill's sequence in Volume 2, when he's remembering everybody, his ego has like put his tendril into Quill and he's fighting it and he's remembering everyone. Uh, the flashes of different memories, one of them is Rocket and Quill flying. They are flying with the jetpacks through the sky.
Huh.
They have this whole story. If you look at Volume 3, not just as a third film, but as the third act of a larger story, Gunn has had a very specific story. Yes, it's
Mm-hmm.
Quill that we center things on in the beginning, but Rocket's been going on a journey too. I mean, Volume
Yeah.
2, it's Quill's story with his dad and Rocket's story being open to a family again, which is what sets the stage for being able to explore that and heal from it too. And particularly, he gets his name in the third film. We find out he's actually from Earth
Mm-hmm.
and he takes his name. When you see that, when you pair it with where Gunn's been dropping all of these little things, that film continues to impress me. I'm looking forward to rewatching it again next month.
Yeah. I mean, and they straight up tell the audience that this has been a Rocket story. That line is it. It's been your story all along. And yeah, we
Mm-hmm.
follow Quill, but it's definitely just as much Rocket's
Mm-hmm.
progression as it is Quill's progression. Yeah, man, it rights the ship, so to
Mm-hmm.
speak, for the MCU for me. And at the I think we're back on course, and I am all for some Marvels coming up to see what these ladies do because I think that's going to be a lot of fun. What is your numero 4, sir?
Before I do that, I just want to say I have not yet watched a horrible MCU movie. They've all been entertaining as shit, and I've rewatched them all more than once, and
There's
that's
one
fine.
out there, and
And
that
that's
one is
fine.
called The Incredible Hulk.
Oh no, that movie's great.
Terrible.
You know, do you know what happened the last time Bruce went to Harlem?
He kind of
You know
broke
what
it.
happened?
Kind of broke it.
Yeah, he broke it straight
Yeah.
up.
And I was like, I don't
Without
need to
that
be
movie,
reminded. Don't need to be
without that
reminded.
movie, we wouldn't have the good stuff in She-Hulk. So you know what? Even the ones that aren't the best are still good. And I haven't watched a bad one. I've watched good ones, but I haven't watched a bad one. Now,
I
that's
think the
me.
best
That's
part of
subjective.
She-Hulking is a little bit of twerking going on in that show. I don't need the Hulk for that. But
y'all, I just got to see something none of y'all ever will because this is not a video podcast. That was amazing. Thank you for that.
It was
And
something, all right.
I will go into my number 4. It is the documentary that I saw, another film from the Santa Barbara International Film Festival, but a documentary by David Mesfin called Wade in the Water, A Journey into Black Surfing and Aquatic Culture. It's around an hour long, but it does a deep dive, no pun intended, looking at the literal history of the African community with surfing, with swimming, with oceanic activities as part of a central part of their culture, and how when they were taken from Africa as part of the slave trade into Europe, into the Americas, how the water still was important to them, but were often removed from the water specifically because plantation owners and other slave masters knew that the original folks from Africa knew how to navigate the water. And so they took that away from them as much as possible, which somehow through the generations turned into a we don't go into the water, where in popular culture, and there's a couple of snippets from this in the documentary, where there'll be something, whether it's the Jeffersons, which you were joking about before, or something else talking about how they don't swim, except there is a deep thing in the culture and community for that. And not only do they look backwards, and find historical evidence for it, but they look forwards as well, and looking at the various groups now that are based in California specifically, along the coastline, that are trying to rejuvenate that part of the culture. And they have historical experts, they have athletes, they have different people that have been part of surfing specifically for decades, and have been working on segregation and other forms of history and education, talking about it. It is fascinating on an education standpoint about the things that we just don't know, but it's also structured and edited in such a way that one never feels overtaken, particularly by the history. It is fascinating and treated with just this sort of joyous curiosity that audiences might come to it with. They become overwhelmed with sort of this joy and reclamation. I cannot recommend this documentary enough. It is my second favorite documentary this year.
Boom. There you go. Go
And it
ahead
is
and
on the
check that
festival
out.
circuit for those of you that are interested.
It is on the festival circuit for those of you who can pilfer a copy off the festival circuit.
Wait, that's
Uh,
not what I was saying. That's not what I was saying.
sorry.
Don't
Uh,
pilfer. No
my
iron price here.
no iron price. It's the gold price. My number four is a little joint that popped up on Apple that surprised a lot of people, man.
Ghost?
Tetris. No,
Oh,
you go. Ain't nobody putting Ghost on. Not any good top five
ghosted.
lists.
I'm sorry. I got the
Yeah,
name wrong.
yeah. No one's putting that on their good top fives. I heard nothing but bad things about that movie.
Sorry, you were
Um,
saying.
yeah, Tetris, man. The Taron Egerton joint, the game you couldn't put down, the story you couldn't make up. Um, when this was first announced, everyone had the same thought. Every single one was in the same thought. Who the fuck wants a Tetris movie? No one realized it would be how we got a Tetris movie, not exactly a Tetris movie, just how it came to be to the public consciousness. This is the 80s. This is a Russian that made Tetris, that made the original coding for Tetris. And of course, that's like deep mid Cold War era between US and Russia. And it's just about this video game salesman, this American video game salesman that knows what this Russian has made. He's got the vision and he sees what it could be. It's just all the bullshit and the red tape and the lies and the deceptions that he has to go through or perpetrate in order to get this into the hands of American audiences. The such a deep belief in what this game could be is putting up his own house for collateral, potentially losing his family along the way, and all this stuff that goes down, befriending the Russian who invented the game, his various trips out there to Russia. It is so wildly entertaining. Uh, Letterboxd listed it as a history, a drama, and a thriller, but there is huge heaps of comedy all throughout it as well. It's got an energy, it's got a flow to it that's just so much fun to watch. And it's just thoroughly entertaining. Taron Egerton continues to impress. He
Mm.
continues to just take the wildest leaps of faith with some of the projects that he does. And he just keeps knocking it out of the park, man. He's a very versatile. His resume is incredibly versatile. I
Yes.
think for like this character is not Elton John, it's not Eggsy, and I've been loving his journey so far, and he is just as charming and entertaining here as he is as Eggsy. Um, and
He's
the
a great
movies
character actor. I don't think people realize that. He does characters incredibly well.
he does
He's a
characters
leading
incredibly
man,
well.
but he does characters incredibly well.
Yeah, he's yeah, exactly. 118 minutes, man. This movie does not feel like its length because you are so entertained. And of course, because it is a Tetris movie, there does come a point in time in the movie where they're on the run, they're on the escape. He's figuring out, all right, if I do this, and then you can see the blocks forming in his head as he's trying to escape from the thing. Like you couldn't not do some version of that. And they make it look cheesy and fun and enjoyable. I was surprised by how much I love this movie, man. I fucks with it heavily. If you have Apple TV Plus, then go ahead and do yourself a favor, man, and check this bad boy out. It's just fucking fun, man. Fun and entertaining. I mean, there's absolutely no way to verify its accuracies, But if liberties were taken, they did a good job taking those liberties and beefing it up the story and punching it up. I love it, man.
Which, just a quick shout out for Apple TV Plus, if it's it's an underrated service. It's got
Man,
some
look,
quality programming on it.
it
It really
was
does.
the second best service, and nothing was touching HBO Max until Zaslav showed up. Now I think if you look at, they have the smallest category of original programming,
Mhm.
but the ratio is the highest quality of shows. I
Which is
think,
all it needs to be. The
yeah.
fact that Apple, more often than not, they're not churning stuff out in the way that some of the other streamers are. Seriously.
Sorry.
No, you just fucking scream it. It's at a point where whatever Netflix puts out, they rarely do the advertising for it, so people know that it's out, and then it gets buried by the next thing that they're putting out. There's literally too much content. Whereas Apple TV, and in particular the whole binge model, there's not a whole lot of conversation. The only conversation is if you don't watch it opening weekend, it won't get another season because they'll think nobody wants to watch it. Whereas Apple TV, and there are other streamers that do this too, but Apple TV, by putting out one episode a week, there's conversation.
Mhm.
And so people can decide if they want to check it out. And there's quite a few things that have been released by Apple TV that are very much worth watching. It's not on my top five, but it's certainly in my longer list for this year. But the Michael J. Fox documentary is fantastic.
Still,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
That's its name, and also it is still fantastic.
Yeah. Go ahead.
But anyway,
This is a plug for Apple TV Plus,
oh
man.
yeah,
They got some of the
they
best
have more
programming
than
out
Ted
there.
Lasso.
They have more than, actually their slogan, Apple TV. We have more than Ted Lasso. Invented. We recorded our final draft of Paprika yesterday,
Mm-hmm.
and we invented the Paprika streaming service Clusterfuck Plus. Will be coming to coming to your TVs sometime in the near future. So you can look out for
Neat.
Clusterfuck Plus, please. Yeah. So what is your number three there, good sir?
My number three is another short film. It's my last short film for this list, but it's a short film that I saw at Sundance. I was curious to check it out. For those of you that aren't aware, I was raised in a Reform Jewish household. I am more culturally Jewish than I am practicing. And there are some things that, just like with anybody, when you grow up in any sort of culture community, when you see something that uses that language of that community, whether you're still involved with it or not, you get curious. And there was a documentary called Under God by Paula Islet. She's the director of a fabulous and devastating documentary called Aftershock that is on Hulu. I've talked about Aftershock before on the show. If you all haven't checked it out, please do see it. But knowing that this was a short film by that director, I was like, okay, I'm kind of interested. And I see that the title God has a dash through it instead of an O, because in the Jewish community, we don't spell out the name on anything, in particular on anything that could be just tossed away.
Mm-hmm.
So I saw that and I was like, wait a minute, this is literally something I recognize. It's speaking a language that I understand. And the documentary is looking at the removal of Roe v. Wade and what that looks like to a Jewish community.
Mm-hmm.
And so Paula goes to different people around the country looking at how, when we talk about freedom of religion, how this gets impacted, particularly when you look at it from a community and culture where abortion isn't an issue. Like it's a medical procedure. That's how it's viewed. And so in 23 minutes, we get experts, we get lawyers, we get religious leaders, not just of the Jewish faith, but of other faiths as well. And this is a documentary I actually would like to see drawn out. Whereas with Lamb as a short film, that's perfect as it is. Under God, I really would love this to have been just sort of a test to see if people are interested and then turn it into a larger feature. But I highly recommend it, whether you are in the Jewish community or not. it makes some really interesting points, and also points out some political faux pas that when you make a law and you make it with a specific view, you have to be ready for that specific view to be used by the opposition.
It,
And so that gets brought up in a really fascinating and interesting way. But that is Under God, my number three.
my number three is the third of a series of films. Um, you talked about growing up Jewish, being in the Jewish community. I'm talking about punching motherfuckers in the face. I'm talking about
Holy shit, what was your childhood like? Can I have breakfast? Punch in the face.
Creed
Time for
3,
snacks?
man.
Punch in the face.
I'm talking Creed 3, the directorial debut of one Michael B. Jordan. Man, listen. Uh, Sometimes you just gotta watch two shiny, brown, muscular motherfuckers get down in the ring. And that's
You
what
can say
this
that. If I say that, I would sound like a character from Django Unchained. I just want to point that out.
yes, you would. You have my attention. Yeah, man. This culminates caps. We don't know they would be smart to leave it here. The Creed trilogy. I think this ends things in a very good spot for Apollo Creed, the character. I'm sorry, Adonis Creed, the character. Um, Ghosts coming back to from the past to haunt the present, as it were. Um, in the form of his old friend Dame Anderson, coming getting out of jail, man, uh, wanting to prove that he's the best. He was the up and coming boxer when he went to jail. He is now out, and man, it's on from there. It culminates in what they call, I do believe, the Battle of Los Angeles, and it's Dodger Stadium. I think is where
Yes,
you. I'm not sure why you put a boxing ring in Dodger Stadium. I'm pretty sure there's better for the seating. I guess it's for the seating
probably.
because yeah, capitalism. Yeah, it's just that these two guys, literally and figuratively dancing around each other until you get to that point. It leads to the inevitable. It's one of those movies. It's like how this is going to end. It has to end with the fight between the two of them.
Mhm.
How do you, knowing how it's going to get there? How do you make everything that leads up to that interesting?
Yeah.
And I think that they do a fairly damn good job at that. Unfortunately,
Mhm.
Tessa Thompson's character kind of suffers for it. Kind of takes a bit of a backseat in her development. This is all about the relationship between Michael B. Jordan and Jonathan Majors, and a third act boxing scene that, to me, who is not a huge fan of that sweet science, um, did not disappoint. That the for some reason the weird selling point for a lot of people all throughout this movie is how Jordan was going to put his anime influence into it, and you see it all over that fight. I love that third act boxing scene. Yeah, you've
Mhm.
got me hooked into the lead up to this, and they just had to stick the landing. And for me, they do stick the landing of this movie.
Absolutely.
Incredibly entertaining. Uh, and one of those movies that's like at the end of I don't know, I wouldn't go so far as to call him the bad guy. He's the antagonist
Yeah.
of this movie. He's just like, you know, fight.
He
He
does
does
some
do a little bit of
shitty things.
there's some griminess in there. There's some griminess in there. But they just have a conversation at the end of it, which
Mhm.
is something you don't really see a whole lot of. I don't remember you seeing that too much in the Rocky movies. What you do see is Apollo Creed busted into Rocky's hospital room at the beginning of the second one, I think, and talking mad shit. This time you just see that, like, after the fight, strangely, not a bruise on either one of their faces, which I think is weird. They just sit there and have a bit of a conversation, and then Dame just kind of goes his way. And that's an ending that I can get down with. Like, I shot my shot. I didn't get there. It was a fair fight. Let me go on my way now.
Mhm.
Uh, and I find that interesting, man. I found the whole thing from beginning to end interesting. And solid directorial debut, Michael B. Jordan.
Yeah.
There's signs of growth to be had, but I think for his first time out, he did a damn good job.
And as I recall, there is a continuation actually in comic book form following Adonis and I can't remember Tessa's character's name either, but following their daughter as a boxer.
Oh, good, 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 good.
So, there is a continuation. Whether they actually make more movies, no idea. I would enjoy seeing more of this character. I really like Jordan as an actor and his portrayal of Adonis.
Hmm.
I actually, as we've talked about on the show, I actually prefer the Creed movies more than the Rocky films. I would put the Creed movies on just to watch them and enjoy them before I put on Rocky. However, you can't, I think, enjoy the Creed movies as much on their own unless you've seen the
Hmm.
Rocky films because you need that emotional investment in the world. Um, but they are so well done and so well crafted that I just prefer them. So I wouldn't mind seeing more, but at the same time, it is such a great ending. He's retired, probably again
I would think.
by the end of this.
I would think.
But anyway, yeah. That's that. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. What is number two, sir?
My number two is a film that is in select theaters as of the 23rd of June, premiered at an animation film festival, I think, on the 14th of June, and comes to Netflix on the 30th of June. It is the Troy Quane and Nick Bruno co-directed Nimona.
Hmm.
This is the film that is a adaptation of N.D. Stevenson's web comic turned graphic novel. This is the film that was being made by Blue Sky Studios, home of Ice Age and Spies in Disguise, before Disney bought it and they went, nope, too gay, get rid of it. And it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
But this movie is fucking incredible. I watched this to review it. The review is spoiler-free review live on Elements of Madness right now. I finished it, and Crystal, who had been editing while I was doing this and putting one of the kids down, I'd put down the other one, so it's not like I just absconded. I've got a movie to watch. No, I put one child down and then went to work. The older one stays up later.
Yeah.
Anyway, she was done, and I finished it, and I went, "Come here, sit." And I showed her the first 19 minutes, and she wanted to keep watching. Unfortunately, because our youngest isn't sleeping great, it took literally 3 nights to finish it for her.
Hmm.
But she looked at me and went, I want to watch that again. It is a beautiful combination of 2D and 3D animation.
Hmm.
It is a film that is set in a community of an unknown time period, but it begins in sort of a medieval Renaissance sort of period and then jumps 1,000 years.
Okay.
So the characters are still wearing suits of armor and they're still riding horses, but the horses might be robots that fly in the air and they might have crossbows, but they've got these laser things that pop out that shoot the darts. It's a combination of past and future, and the way that the ideas of that set and production design convey a conflict between progressive and conservative ideas, and the way that the story, which is itself a film about a character voiced by Riz Ahmed, is believed to have killed someone, and believing to be framed, wants to figure out the truth and gets approached by this shape-shifting young woman, goes by the name of Nimona, voiced by Chloe Grace Moretz. Yep.
Hey.
Her performance in this is so fucking good. It's high energy, but it also brings in the emotionality. Riz Ahmed is a phenomenal straight man. To her, just everything. The comedy works. The animation is beautiful. There is a heartfelt story here that is earnest. It does not reach any farther than it deserves to go. Um, I have not seen Across the Spider-Verse. I am hoping to do that while on vacation. We'll see if that happens. But for me, this is my favorite animated movie of this year. And it is my number two. And I look forward to everybody seeing it so that they can explore this world themselves. If you are looking for a comparison to give you an idea of both narrative and animation, it's as though a Apple TV's Cartoon Saloon Wolfwalkers crossed with the Sony Netflix Mitchell's versus the Machines.
Hmm.
And Mitchell's I fucking loved as I did with Wolfwalkers. So if you liked those movies, Nimona's going to be your jam and your jelly.
Your jam and your jelly. My jam and jelly is the best animated movie of the year. Number two, Spider Man.
That wasn't an
Across
animated movie. It came out years ago. Sam Raimi directed it. You might remember Tobey Maguire.
Bruce Campbell's Mysterio,
Yeah, yeah.
Spider Man across the Spider Verse.
No. Bruce Campbell was only Mysterio in Spider-Man 2, the video game. Get that right.
Oh,
Get
okay,
that right.
okay,
Come
okay.
on. Come on.
Wait a minute, he actually voices Mysterio in the Spider-Man 2 video
Yes,
game?
he did.
Oh wow, wow. Shout out to
Yeah,
Bruce
and says
Campbell.
shit like Clactu Verata Nicto.
Of
Yes.
course he does. Of
Yes, he
course he
does.
does. He also says shit like Pizza Papa gets paid.
Yeah, and he do.
Me
And he
too.
do.
Man, I gotta get the recipe for those pepperoni balls. Spider-Man Across Spider-Verse. Good lord, good lord. Everyone had the same question on their mind going into this movie. Can it? I saw a lot of people that weren't even thinking, can this be better? They just wanted to be as good as the first one. Can you match the energy and the magic? Can you recapture that lightning in the bottle? And goddamn, did they recapture that lightning in the bottle? Not only is Miles further developed, he takes a step back so Gwen can get some shine. The movie opens with Gwen and her development. Um, Miles's parents get more development. The three of them's relationship gets more shine and more focus. Um, the animation is just as beautiful as you remember, if not even more so. We see new animation that we didn't see from the first one in there. There's a character that looks like it's ripped off the pages of Renaissance art at the very beginning. That's awfully fucking weird. And then, of course, you get all of the spiders. So if you're a fan of the spiders, then you get to look for, oh, there's the PS4 video game Spider-Man. There's this Spider-Man. There's that Spider-Man. And what the fuck is that guy over there? It's just a fun
Kitty.
romp. A fun romp from beginning to end. The worst part about this movie is it's got, like I said when we talked about it for the show a
Mm-hmm.
couple episodes ago, it's got that MCU phase one villain problem. And the villain is not really present all that much, which is a shame because you really love him when he's on screen. He just doesn't get a whole lot of screen time, and he's got his own like existential awakening in the little bit of time you see him, which I would have liked to have seen more of that. And they've already came out and said that, yeah, you're going to get a lot more of him in this next movie. That was tease and setup is what we got in Across Spider-Verse. Your real antagonist, Miles Morales, Oscar Isaac just collecting another one of the pop culture infinity gems as he is as he's been wanting to do over the last like 10 or so years. It's amazing, man. And it ends on that good cliffhanger. There's the two great cliffhangers. There's the I need to know what the very next scene is
Mm-hmm.
cliffhanger, and then there's the I need to know where they go from here cliffhanger. And this is both of those. And it ends in where you're like, I have no idea how he's going to get out of the situation he finds himself in. And I have no idea how Gwen's going to be able to do what she's trying to do. And I have no idea how Miles is going to do what he's trying to do. And you also have no idea what the Spot's going to do what he's trying to do either. It's just, it ends on a perfect gasp of that's what's going on here. Brilliant editing, brilliant cinematography. Obviously, we get brilliant animation at the horrid cost of the treatment of these workers and animators, much like we're getting the horrid treatment of writers currently.
Mm-hmm.
And it really shows you just how fickle this entire entertainment industry can be and how exploitative this entire industry can be
Mm-hmm.
of the people who slave behind the camera to give you what it is that you see. But the final product that they created in Across the Spider-Verse is nothing short of absolute mastery of the animated medium form.
Right on. Do you know you've seen this? What did you say? 3 times?
No, I saw Guardians 3 times. I've seen
Okay.
this once, and I'm going to be taking my daughter when she gets back from her summer trip
Okay.
to see it.
Okay.
Although and I'm not. I know you said you were struggling to find some showings after the end of this week, and she doesn't get back for like another week and a half. So I might just be seeing it by myself one more time.
The reason why I asked is I discovered recently that apparently there are different versions,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and so I was curious. I'm really wondering if on the home release if it's going to be like if they're going to give you an option version A, version B, where they're
The
just
the I mean, the differences aren't big enough to really matter. It's not like you're missing
but
out.
they put them out
Oh,
there for a reason though. There's changes
yeah.
in dialogue, there's different responses. I don't know. It's quirky and silly enough that it feels like if they put it in theaters that like it'd be cool to see it. From all of the non-spoilery things that I have seen online, because anytime I think something's veering into spoiler territory, I try to skip. But I loved finding out that Jefferson Davis has changed his name to Morales,
Mm-hmm.
which is apparently something from the comic books as well. And there's been some other little things where they've explored some of the greater themes of this film through other smaller things. I'm
Yeah,
very much looking forward to exploring that, considering how rich the first one is. I'm very much looking forward to just getting started with the new one.
get started with the new one. And the animation thing that they use for Gwen Stacy, and how it reflects the mood of the scene is just fucking wonderful. It's wonderful. Like, you really feel that combined with the composition, the music. Man, they're just beating you up with the feels all throughout that movie.
Oh, oh.
So enjoy. Prepare to be devastated in some points. What is your number one
My
so
number one
far?
film is something that I saw during the Overlook Film Festival. It's being distributed by XYZ Films. I don't know if they have picked it up or if it's been picked up by anybody else or if they're just going to distribute it themselves. But it's directed by Philip Baranti, who did Boiling Point, which, as a quick side note before I get into the film, because there's been a lot of discussion of The Bear, which I have not watched,
Mm-hmm.
but folks are loving it. If you haven't seen the 2021 film Boiling Point, Philip Baranti directed that as well. It's a one-shot film. I've talked about it on the show before, but it's basically a couple of hours in the life of this head chef in London, and the night just goes fucking south. Stephen Graham is the lead actor in it.
Love me
He's
some Stephen
phenomenal.
Graham.
Yeah, he's phenomenal. But if you like The Bear, go track down Boiling Point. I think Second Sight, an overseas physical distributor, did release it on Blu-ray, but I'm sure it's streaming somewhere. But the movie that I did want to talk about is called Accused. I discussed this back when I saw it a couple months ago. It is the only film I've given this year that is at a 5-star rating. There is nothing about it that I took issue with. It is a fucking nightmare. And I can't imagine what it would be like to be in this situation. But the premise of it is that a young man living in London, he leaves town, hops on a train, goes to his parents' place because he's going to house sit while his parents go on vacation. He leaves his girlfriend, she's at his flat, and goes to do this. She's going to meet him like the next day. While he's traveling, someone also goes to the train station and leaves a bomb.
Oh
We
boy.
find out about this when he's on the train, and he, like all the other riders, are learning about what just happened behind them. And so news is coming out, news is coming out, news is coming out. Well, it turns out the single photo that they have of the bomber is a lot like the outfit this guy is wearing.
Oh boy.
Yeah. And so we know that this is happening because he's got his laptop open and he's doing searches for stuff, but he's also got his feet up and watching the TV. But the camera keeps checking the screen and it keeps angling itself to be like, fucking look down, asshole.
Mm-hmm.
And from the moment he looks down and realizes that people are saying he's the one that did it, all of a sudden it turns into this whole how horrible can the night go as he's watching people accuse him and try to upend his life because they think he is the terrorist. It deals with a lot of xenophobia, deals with a lot of cultural issues specific to the United Kingdom. But I think those of us in the United States, there's enough similarity that we can understand it as well. It's about 88 minutes long. It is super fast, especially once it gets going. It is a thriller. It's a horror film. It's suspenseful. It is beautifully acted. And if there's anybody here who has ever watched Sex Education, the lead actor of Accused, if I'm pronouncing this right, Chanel Coular, he is one of the sort of rich kid, popular kid group. I think he plays a gay character in Sex Education.
Mm.
Um, but he's one of a group of people that keep like telling Asia and his friends to just go the fuck away. But it's I cannot recommend this film enough, and it would be disingenuous not to mention this was written by James Cummings and Barnaby Bolton. The narrative that they've put together for this is fucking rich, and if you guys get the opportunity to check it out, please, please, please take it.
You got a motherfucker named Barnaby writing your shit. You know it's going to be fire. Looking through my lists, I'm back to 2020, and I have not found a 5-star movie I've given out yet.
I do it very rarely. I think last year my only one was RRR.
I think I gave that a 3.5. Yeah,
Oh,
I found two 4.5s. I have not found, nope, three 4.5s. I have not found a five. Craziness. My final movie is a 4-star, by the way. A movie that we talked about this last episode. Some of the dopest dopeness to grace the screen so far, and John Wick Chapter 4. Man, I scooped this feller up on Blu-ray a couple days ago, and man, I'm just waiting for the perfect time to sit down and just relive all of the goodness and insanity that is that movie. Just if this is the culminating journey, cool. If it's not, I'm also cool with that. I've come to that conclusion. Um, what we get out of the character here is still finding more depths. I think a lot of the theme of this movie, I think, of John Wick 4 is honor, and it shows you how much honor that he has. I mean, we've seen him be a quote unquote good person throughout the other movies.
I mean he's a killer. He is
He's a
not a good guy. He's a
he's
killer.
he treats people decently and with respect. Let me put it
Yes.
that way. But this is the first time we see him treat people honorably. I would say he pays his dues. He sticks to his word and his guns. And what we get out of that, because he does these things, is unfortunately the deaths of other people. As well as just well told action cinema, something that whether if you believe the people that talk about movies a lot or not, is it's something that is a dwindling art form, especially that mid-ish budget type action movie, right? Adventure movie. We don't really get those since the rise of superhero movies.
Mhm.
These are increasingly rare. And this is just I think that's why this franchise is as popular as it is. I think that's why Stahelski and Leach have both had the careers that they've had, is because they're making action movies that you don't quite see like this in the West. In the East, these motherfuckers crank them out every other Tuesday. But in the West,
I mean, you're not wrong to a degree.
in the West, we're not really getting them like that. And I think that has also led to the rise of interest in Eastern Asian films, because they do more practical looking action films, not these big CGI animated fests. And John Wick is just another great example of those, man. Great set pieces. I agree in the argument that some of them go a tad too long sometimes. I don't think the stair fight goes on too long, but there are a couple other ones that I'm like, okay, we understand what's going on here. I'm gonna put $10 down on this guy gets double tapped in the head coming up, and he gets double tapped in the head coming up. What do you know? But still, fun. 2017 is the answer to that question. It was Blade Runner 2049 was my last 5-star movie. Yeah, it's
It's a
just
good film.
it's
It's a shame nobody likes it.
it's a shame nobody likes that movie, man. No one saw this coming for Keanu Reeves. I don't think, probably
Mm-mm.
Keanu Reeves least of all. And I think that's also part of why I enjoy it so much. Is it's him finding a second life after the Majors. He kind of
Mhm.
had a lull. I thought he was going to be the hottest thing for you after that, and that didn't end up really being the case. And it's just glad to see a deserving dude get some more extra good shine. Um, Out of a character that when I talk about John Wick treating people with decency and respect, I think a lot of that is Keanu Reeves in that character of John Wick. The aesthetics, dare I say, the buzzword of the decade, the vibe in that movie is there.
Oh, the
Is a
vibe is runs throughout the John Wick series, and it's a consistent vibe.
It is a consistent vibe. It is a shame that we will never get the deserved crossover that we should get with Atomic Blonde,
Hmm.
but this is just an amazing movie, and I love it, man. I love this movie. It's and like my number one from last year. So there's plenty of things that could come along on top of this for being number one. But number one from last year, Top Gun Maverick. It's just a great theatrical experience.
Yes.
That's what really I do factor that in a bit into my rankings. Is just how did I feel while I was watching this movie? And with Top Gun, like John Wick, you and a crowd of strangers, a community for 2.5 hours in the dark, you were swept away on a fucking story. And there's oohs and ahs and there's claps and there's laughs and all that good shit, man. I'm a big fan of this movie.
Yeah. Which, by the way, for anyone interested, I last show I talked about how I finally watched John Wick 4, and I did put my thoughts on paper. I did a rather lengthy review of the fourth film, but with the context of the previous three.
Mm-hmm.
That'll publish on the 6th of July. So I'll be sharing that at some point. Um, I just I got some other stuff that's a little bit more timely, and I want stuff to be on the website while I'm on vacation. Everybody's already read thoughts on John Wick 4. Nobody needs my shit. So I was like, why rush?
Well, I
Uh,
rush because you get it out during the boom of the home video release when a conversation comes back up again. That's when you slip it back in there.
well, yeah, except I watched it around a week after it hit home video. So the
I
conversation,
can't help you. I can't help
I
you.
couldn't help me either. So I just figure I'll run it then if anybody wants to take a look. But I do agree with you. I will disagree with the fact that this film is Wick at his most respectful. I do think that, and they talk about this in the bonus features, is that this film four is more of a samurai film.
Mm-hmm.
It's about a group of samurai, in this case, Wick as a Ronin, who they abide by their own code. And so they are respectful in that regard. But we saw that going back to the first film in moments, there were many of them, but where it's the cop coming to the door, hey, John, got a noise complaint.
Yeah.
You working again? Like that. And it's a very chill conversation there. Or when he
That guy I
gets,
did not realize. No, I'm sorry. Sorry to interrupt you. The
no, go
guy
for
who
it.
comes to clean up afterwards is the Warriors come
Yes,
out
he
to.
is.
I just realized that this year.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, there you go. I've actually never seen Warriors. I know the reference,
Hmm.
but I know him from The Crow.
Okay. Yep. I
Yeah, he's part of
can't be
that
mad
crew.
at that. Yeah. Can't be mad at that.
He's yeah. So anyway, but when he's fighting against Perkins and it gets into the hallway and the dude steps out, it goes, John, is that you? Oh yeah. You working? Just sorting some shit out. You want to earn a coin? Like he's very personable and stuff, but with this one, we actually get a sense of relationships.
Mm-hmm.
We get a little bit of that with chapter 3, particularly with Sophie. You do this for me. If you just ask, we'll consider the marker done. You don't have to go through with it, but this. And we get some of that. We get a little bit more of that here. The whole, I didn't explore it in my review and I wanted to, but the idea of violence is so integral to this journey that getting in or getting out of it comes with bloodshed. And all I could think about is all of the times he's been burned to get in or out of a group, and all they do is pour vodka on it, send you the fuck out of there. And the welts that he would have, like in a human experience, he would be so broken. But this is also the same dude that jumps out of a window of like a 5-story building, lands on a roof of a car, hits the pavement, and gets up and goes up a bunch of steps because he's
Yeah.
late for a date. So reality bends itself for the John Wick films, but this film lives and dies on the rules that it built before, and it all comes down to honor, how we treat people, What are the ways in which we treat them? Do we treat them with respect or not? And one of the things that I've noticed with these films, and particularly this one, is that no one has realized that with John, if you just talk to him, he's a pretty reasonable dude. But
Yeah,
if you come at him with violence, he will respond in kind.
exactly. Exactly. Everyone uses violence as their go-to, and which my personal philosophy is violence should be used after all other means have been exhausted. But this is a world of killers, so they start with what they know best. And that's why John, I think, always was the standout amongst all of them, and the most popular or well known of all of them is probably he was the outlier who was
A little bit.
much more thoughtful and contemplative than the rest of those killers were. I'm willing to bet that he part of his name comes from his talent for killing, but also his talent for thinking his way around things as well.
And I agree with that completely. And one thing I'll give this movie, intentionally or not, is that we never got to see, and I've been grateful for it. We never really know much about the impossible task that he had to commit for Santino in
Mm-hmm.
order to get out.
Mm-hmm.
The impossible task he did for Santino, that oh no, that he got Santino's help for, excuse me,
Yeah.
that he did for the boss in the first film that gave their family their strength at the table, that got him out. We hear bits and pieces of it, but it's not significant to his journey. I think a lesser film would have had us dig into that and have that somehow be connected. That's not important. It just he's done it. However, with four, they show us an impossible task.
Mm-hmm.
They show what he is capable of 5 years past retirement.
Yep.
He is around a year because it's, I think, a couple of between one and the end of three, it's a couple of weeks.
Mm.
And then between the end of three and the start of four, it's 9 months. So we're around a year. He's almost at the yard of his wife's death.
Yeah.
Um,
What a year.
something like that.
Yeah.
But this, he's doing the impossible task again to get out. All he wants to do is remember his wife. That's it. He just wanted to grieve. Nobody would fucking let him, and he has literally fought from being sent back down to hell and right the fuck up against God and right
Mm-hmm.
out.
Yep.
So,
Yep. And this is it, like you said, a dude 5 years retired, and we're seeing an impossible task, and that's how the legend like imagine what this dude was doing in his prime, and that's what makes it like whatever your imagination is going to be way doper than anything we see on screen. And
and
is by
and
doing this, it gets us to imagine this, and it makes the character even bigger.
and I didn't I obviously didn't put John Wick this high on my list, but this we talked about it last episode, and I know we're running long, so we're going to wrap this, I'm sure. But I will restate the whole cannon fodder thing drives me crazy, especially in chapter four, because it's like, okay, guys, Wick's contract just keeps going up.
Mm-hmm.
Which one of you fuckers thinks you're going to be lucky enough at this point? Like, the smart money is live. Smart money is live. Don't go after the contract. Fucking live your life. You'll make more money hand over fist than if you go up against John Wick, because you're gonna fucking die. That's
the,
what the good money says. He
the
started at 10 million.
he's up to like 40 by the end of it or something
Yeah.
like that. Yeah. This I would say the smartest money is the character you get the least amount of, Mr. Nobody, is that's his thought process of let me keep this dude alive to let that bounty grow and grow and grow, and then I'll try my hand. Like that's just smart business.
And he's a sniper. He's the only one who's like, fuck this up close bullshit. I'm gonna shoot him from here.
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
yes, yes. That up close nonsense is great for stunt work, but that shit'll get you killed against John Wick.
That
He's the
she'll get
only
you
one with any
killed.
fucking sense.
Um, I fail to think of in recent cinema history a world that has been built more entertainingly than the world that they've built in
It pays off.
in John Wick franchise. And it's a world that is believable enough if you're willing to buy into what they've built that you could easily see something like Atomic Blonde being in this same world some 40 years prior, back in the Cold War era. Like they've built a style and aesthetic that's distinctly Leach and Stahelski, even though they've gone their separate ways, they
Yeah.
still continue to use that style and influence, and they have saved action cinema.
Oh, it
Uh,
was fine before then,
yeah, yeah,
but
agreed.
no, they I agree with you in the sense that they have a specific look, style. 8711 Productions, 87 North, 87 North, 8711 Productions is the stunt group
Mm.
that Stahelski and Lech created to do all this. So like Nobody, Atomic Blonde,
Bullet Train.
Violent Night, the John Wick films, they're all 8711. These are high quality stunt people that have been influenced by or were part of the Hong Kong cinema group. So it's like they know what the fuck they're doing. And I think that's why it feels new and fresh to people that either aren't familiar with Hong Kong or are familiar but get to see it in a different way.
I think this is the perfect gateway drug into, if you're not familiar with that whole world of Hong Kong action cinema, your John Woos and your Takeshi Mikes and all them out there. John Wick is a great gateway. We've talked about John Wick long enough.
Well, then I will throw in
That's
one thing, particularly having just watched Super Cop this year for the very first time, that there's a moment in Extraction 2 where I was like, somebody's been watching Super Cop.
right on, right on. Extraction 2. I enjoyed it. I thought the first one better, but I really enjoyed the second one. As we wind this down, sir, we have our 5 through 1s currently. We will see. We will kind of compare our lists at the end of the year. See
As
what
we always
hung
do.
on. See what made the cut, man. Do you have anything else before we wind this down? Before we wrap this up?
Other than I think if it's not on there already, yeah, the way we've talked about this, I got to add John Wick to my list of favorites for the year. It may not be above Sisu because Sisu was fucking brilliant,
Yeah, it would be
but
nice if it wasn't for rent for $6.99 right now. I was like, I'm gonna watch Sisu before the show. I'm not gonna watch Sisu before the
comes
show.
out on home video July 11th.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
Uh,
Was I think it was no, I'm sorry, Sisu was available for rent for 19.99.
yes,
It was
yes,
something
that's
else I
that's
was looking at for 6.99. And I was like, hey, fuck Sisu. But it is very high on my list of things to check out.
it that is a fucking satisfying movie. But while I do apologize to our listeners to throw off the schedule that I will be on vacation, I am looking forward to not writing for a couple of days in order to give my brain and my muscles and my stress level and anxiety a break. But there will be new reviews while I'm gone from various contributors. I think Hunter Heilman is checking out Mission Impossible 7 and Joyride. And I think no, Gabe doesn't have any assignments right now. But we got new reviews coming for stuff, and then I'll be covering the Fantasia International Film Festival, where speaking of Hong Kong, I will be watching a lot of what I'm hoping to be really great Asian cinema, among other things. So, did you know that Nick Cage has a new movie coming out where he could be the devil incarnate?
Yep, yes, I did.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, sympathy for the devil.
Sympathy for the devil.
Yep,
He's not actually the devil. He's just fucking crazy and out for vengeance. And it looks like fun.
looks like fun.
Joel Kinnaman playing opposite him. But anywho, so yeah, that's what I'll be up to. And keep in mind, folks, if there's anything that we've mentioned you haven't heard of, please, 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 I do encourage you to go check that out. And if we've mentioned a movie that you like and it wasn't as high up on your list, well, that's your list.
That's your list. If you're coming to tell us about our lists, fuck off. And that's it
No, no,
for
no.
this.
Talk to us about our list.
Oh
Just don't
yeah,
tell us we're wrong
yeah.
because
Just
that's
don't.
our
Yeah,
list. You
that's
make
our
your
list.
own.
Yeah, what Doug said. All right, that's it for this episode of Cinnamon. We'll be back. We'll be back when we're damn good and ready to be back. And until
Soon.
then, soon. Till then, you all take it easy out there and have a good one.
Later.